Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and this past Saturday, my son, that's him there with the saw, decided it was finally time to get rid of some of these useless fences that we've got here. And it's also a time to get the yard ready, because in a couple of weeks, my granddaughter, and her husband will celebrate their wedding anniversary. Actually, several months ago, when COVID was the big scare, nobody wanted us to have large groups, and so they went to the judge, and he married them. And so, but she, my granddaughter wanted a nice wedding. So we're going to have an outdoor wedding in December, and so that's coming up soon. And so they're looking forward to it, and we're getting the yard beautified. Plus, my son's always wanted to get rid of these fences, except for some places, like right along there to his right, where he put in, if you look at one of my previous videos, I'll try to remember to put a link to it, that gate that goes across back there. Now that he's got that in, he can get rid of these fences that kept the dogs in the yard. So that's part of the reason also. So anyway, that fence is going to stay, and they've got climbing bushes on there. And so once he cut that off, now he's ready to get it out of the ground. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, if you follow my channel, you know that he's already pulled out a few fences and moved them and put them in a different location. And so he uses his tractor for that. The only thing is, some of these fences are in the ground so tightly that the fence post is set in concrete. So he's having a hard time getting it out of there. But and by the way, all the way through the video, I won't take time to have you watch somebody use that saw. Sad part is, I didn't know until the end of the day that was his last Sawzall blade. And I had in my toolbox in the shop back there behind him, I had half a dozen brand new saw blades. So you'll notice as we go through this that everybody's got a pair of pliers and they're straightening that blade out. And there, he finally got that post up. And so that ought to help get the other one up. We're hoping anyway. And by the way, he just got himself a new hat for Arizona. He did have a nice hat last year, but it was poorly made, and when you grab a hold of the top to take it off, it fell apart. I've still got mine because I didn't work outside as much as he did, but we both had the same kind of. It's like a sun hat instead of a cowboy hat. But since he's got a little farm here, very little, I guess that's why he decided to get a hat. Because the other one was wore out, and so he got himself a new one. He is a genius. I know I've already talked about that, but when he was 10 years old, we had this. I had built a back porch onto our house. It was more of a deck, and it came out from the back door, and I wanted it covered, so I was going to use 2x2s and lay them spaced apart across the top, so you still got sun in there, but then you still had some shade. And that was in Pasco, Washington. Pasco's in the southeast corner of the state of Washington, which is, you could call it a desert area. And there's a lot of sagebrush and a lot of heat in the summertime. And there, he finally got it. And so now he's got that fence pulled out of the ground, and time to cut it up. And he stores the metal somewhere and then takes it to the... They took one load this weekend that we were working. Everybody was working but me, of course. They took one load to the steel place, turned it in for scrap, and you make a little bit of money when you do that, so it's worth the drive. So anyway, back to the back porch. He was 10 years old, and I had things to do, and in fact, I had to leave. I had to leave to go somewhere, and he asked me if he could get up and space them out and nail them down and get them up there. And I said, well, yeah, go ahead. Well, when I got back home, he had gotten up there and done a better job than I would have as far as spacing them out and get them up there. So that deck, last time I was by that house, the deck was still there, and so he did a pretty good job. Now he's getting his exercise, I guess you'd say, and he knocks off the concrete. So now here he comes. He's going to use the saw again. I think somebody used it for something else out of view of the camera back here where he was coming from. And there you can see he's got that pair of pliers. Every time I watch this, I feel bad because nobody told me, nobody asked me if I had some saw blades. And so anyway, that's something you can watch all the way through if you stick around. And that's what you'll see most of the time. You'll see the beginning and the ending of the saw cuts, because who wants to sit and watch as they bend more blades? Well, anyway, so that was when he was 10 years old. And so that was the first time that he surprised me with all the things he could do. And then when he was a teenager, I changed jobs from being a Christian radio station manager and engineer, and that was like a one-man job with a lot of volunteers. Anyway, when I transferred from that job to being was the chief administrator of a boys' boarding school just north of Pasco, and so the whole family moved up there, and we lived on site at the boarding school, and it had been a Nike radar base. The radar, that's right there. That's my granddaughter, and that's her husband, and they're coming over to help. And of course, my son appreciates it because one of the things, well, I'll just tell you one of the things about him. He helps everybody. If they need help, the guy across the street, guys where he works, and there's my grandson with broom. He helps them, and then when it's time for him to do something, it's like they're busy. So it's kind of sad. I'm glad that my granddaughter and her husband showed up, because they were a lot of help throughout the day. Anyway, back to the story of when I moved to the old radar base. It was a very exciting place to be, because they had this the control building for launching Nike missiles, and of course, having flown around in my plane in that area for several years, I knew where there were a bunch of old Nike sites, and I would take people out to look at them. And of course, they had filled up the holes by that time, but you could see where the road was, and I even landed on one of those roads once just for fun, and took a friend with me in his plane, and we both landed one time, and so it was just for something to do with our planes. But anyway, so there were these probably, well, I don't know if there was a half a dozen, but there were several, at least four that I know of, old Nike sites. So anyway, then the control for all of those missiles was in that building at the old radar base, where the boys' boarding school was located. There, they're straightening the blade out again, and you'll see that all the way along. Anyway, so they had this big concrete building, which was covering another concrete building inside of it, which was actually mounted on springs. so that if there was an earthquake, the building would just sway back and forth within the outer building. And of course, it was protected from radiation if there was a bomb or something that went off. And they had underground tunnels, which they had filled up with sand before they sold the property to a private owner. So we never got to see what it was like under there, except for once in a while there would be a cave-in, and that's because there was a tunnel underneath of it. But, I mean, you know, you water the lawn, and it gets all soft, and then it would cave in. So, anyway, so he was up there, and there was this other building, which was their maintenance shop, and it had a really fancy welder. It was a metal inert gas, but we had never had one like that. I had an old AC welder that we bought. There's a story behind that too. We went to visit somebody, and they had built a go-kart. They had welded up a go-kart, and so it was a relative, and so we were there a couple of days, and they let him drive around on their go-kart. And so then he got the bug. He wanted a go-kart, and I don't know, a long time went by. He kept wanting one, but you know, where I was working, you didn't just buy a welder to build a go-kart. You bought a welder if you needed to use it all the time. And so I've told this story on my channel before, but back in those days, Sears and Roebuck was a big, you know, there were local stores everywhere, and he's got to be real careful here because that's brand new concrete that was poured especially to get rid of the old walkway that was all cracked up and broken. So anyway, there was this ad in the Sunday paper one time, and of course back then Sears everything was on sale. That was their way to get people to come in. And so I'm sitting in the living room. He comes in with the paper. Dad, we can get a welder. I said, why? He said, Sears has them on sale. So anyway, we decided we'd go get a welder, an old AC welder, which if you know anything about welder, that's the very basic. And we were able to build him a go-kart, and he had a lot of fun with his go-kart. So back to the story. So when he learned how to weld on that, you know, basic weld, and then when we moved up to the boarding school, and they had this shop, it had a really nice MIG welder in it. And so when he saw that, then he started welding with a good welder and got more and more experience at welding. And then not only did he do that, we had this old VW bus. Actually, it was old, not old, but it had been. My wife had been driving in it it was a road with black ice, and she didn't see the ice coming around a corner, and swerved and lost control, and she ended up actually I think she did a 180 and then went into the side of the road and rolled it over on its side, which probably wouldn't have been too bad, except that in the process of the front left wheel caught in the side of the road in the dirt, and it bent the frame. So the frame was crooked from then on, and it wouldn't work for, you know, you'd wear out tires all the time. And so but we still had it, and he decided he would make a sand buggy out of it, which he did. But he cut and welded and cut and welded, and when he was, you know, we don't have any pictures of it, but when he was finished, he had a sand buggy that, because, you know, it's got the engine in the back and all, so it worked really well for what he wanted to do. So that was one of the projects that he did. And in the process of all the things that he did up there at that school, he became a pretty good welder. So, let me see now. Where was I in the story? Oh, okay. So he got pretty good at welding. All right. So anyway, now my grandson's going to help here. And you can see me standing up there near the top in the background. I stood there a lot all day. If you'll follow the videos, you'll see that's where I usually was standing. And looking down. By the way, now he's telling him to get it pulled all the way back so that he can lay the fence down, because that was keeping it from laying down. And he wants to lay it down towards us here, towards the audience. Of course, he didn't know he had an audience at the time, but that's not working. So now he's got to get some more help from the grandson. And so anyway, as far as me standing taking videos, I'm standing right in the sunlight with my smart controller, which in a recent video, I figured out how to make a sun shield so I can stand in the sun no matter which direction and still see all the details of the screen, which is already a good screen, but here in Arizona where you got bright sunlight, it makes it difficult. I mean, even with that screen that they put on it, it's hard to see details. And so he's got the fence pulled out, as you can see, and he just called somebody over to start cutting it apart and get it into pieces. So so that's what they're up to now. And of course, my granddaughter and her husband, they have a couple of dogs they bring with them. He works as a dog trainer at a dog boarding school, and as a matter of fact, the two of them are thinking about starting their own dog boarding school, because my granddaughter loves animals, and he loves animals, and so they're thinking about just starting their own business. Now, what happened was I had to go land because my batteries were getting low, and so I missed part of the cutting up of that fence. But I got in just at the last second there to see him cut it off of where the post for the gate. So, let's see. There was something else I was going to say in my story, so let's just watch for a second here. It's too bad I've got such a bad memory. It's getting worse as I get older. So what they've got now is they've thrown a bunch of the concrete, that the broken up pieces of concrete and some old cement blocks and so forth. And out there in the middle of that road is where the neighbor dumped a whole big pile of rocks when he got all the rocks off of his property, which is just to the right of the picture. Anyway, that's where he dumped a bunch, so we've just been adding to it, or taking from it when we needed something. So that's what they're up to now. Oh yeah, by the way, I was going to say, thanks to my brother, who he bought my original Mini for $200, and I told him I wanted to give it to him, but he wouldn't let me give it to him. And he lives in western Washington State. But anyway, so I sent it up there to him. Well, then, the original Mini doesn't use LiPo batteries. It uses lithium-ion batteries. And so you don't have to babysit them so much. And they do happen to fit into the Mini 2, which is what I'm flying in this video. In fact, it's what I fly all the time anymore because it's so handy. And so he's just a nice guy. So he sent me 2 lithium-ion batteries that work in the Mini 2. So since I bought the combo pack, I now have 5 batteries that will work in my DJI Mini 2. So I could fly all day long without running out of batteries, and that's pretty much what I did while they were working. And but every once in a while, I'd get a dead battery, and I'd have to go land, and I'd miss a little bit of the action. Now, you watch my granddaughter's husband is He doesn't look like a muscle man, but look at him as he picks up these concrete blocks. Of course, I'm past the age of strength, so it amazes me how much energy and strength people have. And of course, I used to have it, but not anymore. I could, when I was young, well, we won't go there. Anyway, it's a good memory, but you're not interested. So here they are, cutting again, and I don't know if they had to stop and straighten the blade or not, but they're cutting the bottom off of that post that held the gate, and then they'll just leave that post on the gate instead of trying to cut everything apart that goes to the dump. And so they're about to get it. And there it is. And if you've been watching the shadows, we started early in the morning, and then the shadows started moving to a different angle because as the day went by, the sun moved. Actually, the sun didn't move, but you know how it works, so we won't go there. Anyway, so they're getting all this concrete blocks out of there because, as you will see here in the video, all of that area right there is going to be turned into a grassy area, and it'll look very nice as a backyard. So anyway, somebody's doing something somewhere else, and he's doing it all alone, but his strength amazes me also. And by the way, if you've been following my channel, his 69 Chevy pickup finally has the engine in it and the transmission, and he's got the cab on it, and the gas tank, he put a new gas tank in it. When I had my 69 Chevy pickup, the gas tank was behind the driver's seat, or behind the seat. And like he said, every time you fuel up, you smell gas inside the cab, which people didn't like. And so he bought a gas tank that will go at, in like normal car, go in the very back of the frame, and he's got that installed in it. So it's in the shop, and he's working on it, and he's trying to get it done as quickly as possible. And as we drove past there, that's the engine and frame for the Chevy. But since then, he's got it put in the shop and got the cab on it. So that's how fast he works when he has the opportunity. And now he's going to take all of these concrete blocks and put them along the fence, so that keeps the critters from coming through the fence, because it's not tied down at the bottom, and it keeps the chickens from going outside the fence. It's hard to keep the chickens fenced in. I was listening to a song from when I was a kid. Gene Autry was singing "Don't Fence Me In," and if you want to know the kind of music that they had when I was a kid, just get on YouTube and Gene Autry and "Don't Fence Me In." Actually, a lot of guys sung it back then, and it's just a cool song. It's typical of the time when I was a kid. So now they've got the concrete blocks out of the way, and he is in the process of leveling that out, and they'll be planting grass there, and then it doesn't grow really fast, but it'll grow, and we'll have a really nice looking backyard. By the way, I live there, just in case you're not familiar with my channel. I live in that fifth wheel trailer that you've seen in the video so far. And now it's time to start on this part of the fence, right there at the corner where they're working. The rest of the fence stays in, but the part near us is going to be pulled out, and just makes one big yard, and that way the dogs can run, and you don't have to go through a stupid gate just to go visit go from the trailer to the house to visit. And so anyway, here they are. Oh, they're getting ready to trying to cut, and the saw keeps jamming, is what's going on. Because when you start cutting, well, then the thing starts to move and it pinches the saw blade. So he's going to come up and he's going to put some pressure down on that pipe, and that will open up the gap where the saw blade goes, and it'll be less apt to jam. So that's what they're up to. It still wants to jam. I don't know if you've never used a Sawzall. They come in really, really handy. I've had a couple of them. When I moved out here, I brought all my tools we put all my tools together with the son's tools in the shop, and so I brought my two Sawzalls, and he had one, and I think I can't remember which one's which, but I think we gave some of them to my granddaughter's husband there. Okay, so they got that cut, and it's getting close to time to pull that thing out of the ground. And so, like I said, I cut out all the boring parts of cutting, and now just simply start pulling things out of the ground. Anyway, back to talking about my son's welding ability. When he eventually in life, he worked at one of the things he did was he worked at they bring in wrecked autos and tear them apart and then sell the parts. He worked in a place like that, and he learned a lot about how cars are put together, the old ones and the new ones. And so he got his expertise on how to work on everything that's in a car, all the electronics and where everything goes and how it works, and so he got really educated on that. And then he went from there. He went from there to working where they made the great big square boxes that they sit on top of buildings for air conditioning and cooling and heating. He worked at a place where they made those, and so one of the things that he did was to help with the welding. So he got more and more experience there, and then of course as time went by, everywhere he worked from after that, he was their favorite welder, and he still is today wherever he goes. And I've shown some examples in previous videos of his welding. It's just totally perfect. Watch out there, folks. That's coming down on you. So we got that one out. Now he's just got to get the gate out and the post that holds the gate. And they'll have all the fences down that they want to get down. And then they can take that steel to the recycling place and get a few bucks for it. And by the way, that trailer over there with the steel in it, that's the load that they took. There's a lot more in it when they go, but anyway, that's the load that they took that day to the steel business. I think he's going to get it there. Of course, I was always standing away from the conversations, so I didn't really know what was going on. That's why I felt so bad that I couldn't have said, "Hey, go look in my toolbox. There's a bunch of blades in there." And I think as there goes Grandma and my grandson walking over to the fifth wheel for something, and so he's going to leave it to my granddaughter's husband, and he got that out of the ground. And now it's time to just start working on making the whole area look like they want it to for the wedding celebration that's coming up in just a few weeks from when this video was made. And now he's got a lot of leftover dirt that he's got to get rid of. And some of it he dumped into the corral And then some of this, they're out. We live on a road that is dirt, but it's got well, not pea gravel, but it's gravel, and it's really nice because it packs in and makes a nice drive. So the only thing is we had all that rain if you've been following my channel, our monsoon season caused so much. I mean, it broke all records, and all the dirt roads were ended up with ruts in them from people driving on them. And I've even got the video on my YouTube channel of when I crashed my e-bike because my wheel snugged up to the side of a rut when I was on a dirt road, and pulled the wheel out from under me, under the bike, and I dumped me on the and I ended up dislocating my shoulder. So up at the far end of this road, if you've been following my channels, you've probably seen it, where I went for a ride with my grandson going to the park, and I filmed him ahead of me on his bicycle, and he drove through the rut that my son is going to go try to fill up with the extra dirt. So he's going to go clear down to the intersection down there, and you can see it coming up. And so I followed him with the drone. I'm still standing in that same spot in the backyard. But this is the DJI Mini 2, and you can get lots of range out of it. And so I followed him up the road. I knew where he was going as soon as he pulled out onto the road because the ruts up there where he's going to be dumping the dirt, they're bad. I mean, you drive over them with the car and it shakes you all over the place, especially if you've got a low VW like we do. So there he is. He's going to start dumping it out. And that tractor has become his his best friend as far as having something that will do the job since they've moved out to their mini farm, we call it. It's been over a year and a half ago now, and it's been a real blessing. It's just nice to be out there. Of course, if you've been following my videos, just to the left of us, there's a huge housing project, and so civilization is moving in closer and closer. And then also, if you've been following my channel, you know that Highway 24 coming down from Phoenix to Tucson is going to go just to the east out there in the farm field. It's going to be running down in that area. And from all my calculations and flying around and just, guessing, I think it's going to be about 2 miles away from where we live, but we'll probably still hear the freeway sounds. So if you've been watching all through this channel, through this video, finally at the end of the day, you'll notice the shadows in a different angle. He decided to go ahead and do some extra decorating, and so this is the shed that he moved from another location, and he's hanging all the old antique tools and implements that we've collected over the years. So anyway, that's it. That's the Saturday family thing that we did. I want to thank you for watching my videos, and God bless.